fishing, it's in my soul.
Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
Hello, Salt Strong Nation. Joe Simons, like diamonds. We are back. Got my boy, Captain Peter Deeks. What's up, brother?
What's up, guys? How are you?
Man, I'm pumped to have you on here. This underwater bait forensics course just went live. I know all of our our lifers and our VIP members got it early. I have been hearing some crazy, amazing feedback. Many people saying this is the best course we have ever done. And I believe it might be just because it's so stinking unique. And we're going to talk about some of the big lessons learned, some massive takeaways for you as an angler listening, just to help you go out there and get more strikes, catch more fish using live bait. So if you don't know the backstory, Captain Peter Deeks is one of our fishing coaches here at Salt Strong. And we've done a couple of courses, haven't we, Peter, and had a blast doing them in the past.
Yeah, definitely.
And we talked about it. We're like, what's next? Like, what's next level? What could we do that's never really been done before that is going to blow everyone's socks off? And not just like a wow factor, but something that's truly going to help any angler, regardless of experience, regardless if you're a weekend warrior or a newbie or even a full-time guide, that it's going to enable anyone to like not just learn something, but have like those aha moments where they can visualize every time they're rigging a live bait, that they're going to be able to visualize exactly what it's looking like underwater based on current, no current, or fishing from a boat or a pier, or kayak, etc. And you guys did it. You and our boy Cole, and I know yourself. I mean, you were taking cameras underwater for about a year to create this thing. This didn't just happen like in a weekend.
Yeah, it took a ton of time. We wanted to cover every different situation that you could find a live bait in, and believe it or not, it's really difficult. You got to find water that's clear enough, current, no current, docks. So we spent a lot of time underwater, making sure that the bait's easy to see, and that you get a firsthand perspective of what a live bait looks like on a hook in the water.
Yep, and I know at first, like a year ago, we were talking about it. Like, let's just cover like the top, 2 or 3 most used. Like shrimp and like a thread fin, maybe a pinfish, and so you guys started there, and then it just kind of kept getting deeper and deeper. You're like, all right, now let's do mud minnows, and we'll do mahara and feather crabs, pigfish, croakers, mullet. I mean, you guys did every major species. I believe it was 9 total, 9 different baits. And once again, we're talking about showing them rigged in the head, in the tail, in the middle of the body, underneath, in every kind of scenario possible, so that you can see exactly what your live bait looks like. And once again, I know when Peter tells me he learned something, it's going to be good, and not just good, it's probably going to be great. And as I've been going through it here myself, and I'm like, holy smokes. Because I think the biggest misconception, Peter, and I think you'll agree with me, is that most of us kind of falsely believe that just because we have live bait that it's superior, right, to compared to like a lure, and that, hey, if I have live bait, the fish are just going to want it, right?
I mean, exactly. So live bait is the most effective and simple way to catch numbers of quality fish. But if you don't present the live bait properly, you won't catch anything. So a lot of people just hook a bait on and they chuck it out there and they throw the rod in the rod holder and they expect because it's live bait, they're just going to catch fish. And, it couldn't be farther from the truth. So as long as you present the bait properly, I mean, you can't beat it. But so that's the only way to really teach somebody how to fish a live bait properly is for them to actually see that bait in the water. A picture's worth 1,000 words. So we can sit here and give 100 seminars and talk about on the boat, this is what you want to do. This is how you free line your bait. This is how you fish your bait with a weight and current, no current. And, it does make sense. But when you're holding that rod in your hand and you're seeing your line go into the water and you can't see past that point, you're fishing. All anglers fish off of their imagination. But unless you know facts and you have accurate information to build that that story in your mind, then it's not effective. So we put together this course so that every viewer can see every live bait under just about every situation in the water and what that bait looks like. So they can then apply it. If you're a skilled angler, apply that to your own techniques so that, you can up your game just that much more. And if you're a beginner, we walk you through just about everything to catch different species, different baits, different situations. So regardless of your skill level, this course is going to really be helpful.
Yeah, I think even for really experienced people, this is going to be a game changer. I learned personally, because I never thought this much about it, just even the size of the weight and the size of the hook. If they are just even a fraction too large, you can end up drowning your bait and having a presentation that looks horrible. And once again, it goes back to that kind of misconception. It can almost hurt you just having that mindset of, oh, it's live bait. As long as I kind of hook it around the right spot, it should be good. And I see people do it all the time. And I was getting wowed by looking at some of these baits underwater when you have just slightly too big of a weight down there. I mean, it literally could destroy your entire chances of catching any kind of serious fish. And I want to preface it too, because a lot of people have caught a lot of fish on live bait, let's just say shrimp, and say, I've just rigged it, whatever, and throw it out there and I get a bite right away. Yeah, that can happen. But we're talking about taking it to the next level. We're talking about catching trophy fish, the kind of fish that you see on Captain Peter Deeks' Instagram page, right? We're talking about 40-plus inch snook and 40-plus inch redfish. I mean, big old gator trout. Those trout, especially those monster trout, those 30-inch trout, those things are not fooled easily. There's a reason that they're that big. They're not going to just be fooled by some bait just because it's live. And I'm telling you, it was so eye-opening to see these baits down there. And once again, just even that fraction of an ounce too big on the weight, or even just a hook that's too big, it literally destroys your chance of catching a big trophy fish.
Yeah, definitely. And the cool thing about this course is we showed that too. So we showed the proper ways to rig baits, but also just about every way to rig a bait. So the improper ways, and we titled it that way so it's not. But yeah, you can see firsthand, like, maybe that's how you rig your bait. And you can look in the water and you can see, let's say, your shrimp, and it's just spinning around in the current. Doesn't look natural. And, you're not going to get nearly as many strikes, especially from the larger fish, than you would if it was rigged another way. So it's just a great way to see that for yourself.
I think I'm trying to count them here. I think you have 17. There's a whole bonus section in this course of what not to do, and I think you have 17 of them. Let's talk about some of them. I know in the one video we discussed, a shrimp, because that's probably, I'm guessing, really from Texas to Florida where we are, all the way up to New Jersey. That's probably one of just the most common baits out there to use. And I know you see a lot of people do it, and I know I was guilty, especially as kind of a new angler. Just, put that sucker right in the middle. Looked like it was the juiciest part, and you hook. You're like, in case a smaller fish nips off the tail or nips off the head, I'm still going to have the middle. And a lot of people still today hook a shrimp right there in the middle of the body.
Yeah, absolutely. When you're fishing around people, I'm always watching to see how people rig things and what they're using for bait. And I feel bad for people, but I see so many people hooking their shrimp like that. And, based on, what I've seen in the water, it makes your shrimp look so unnatural.
And so let's keep talking about shrimp, head versus tail. Now we have to start, and this is what you're teaching in the course too. Now we have to start thinking about the application, right? Are we going to be fishing in current? Are we going to be fishing with a popping cork? What are the next tips in terms of tail versus the head?
So you really want to hook your shrimp in the head or the tail, either end of the body. That way the shrimp is going to be streamlined in the water, because you always want to remember your line, whether there's a weight on there or not, it's going to create drag, and it's going to drag your bait, especially a shrimp. So if it's hooked in the middle, it's going to helicopter. If it's hooked in the head or the tail, then it's going to look natural enough. But, based on different current situations or how you're rigging it, sometimes it's better to hook it in the head, and sometimes it's better to hook it in the tail. So, we show that in all of these videos, and so it's very insightful. I personally learned a lot just filming the shrimp. It was eye-opening for sure.
That probably has the most videos from what I can tell, and for the right reason. I mean, shrimp is just so universal. Talk about baits drowning. I've mentioned that to a few people, and they're like, "What do you mean? Like, how could a fish drown? It's in the water." And you clearly show that in some videos. Talk about how that happens.
So I guess that's the best terminology, that it's drowning. It's suffocating. So we call it drowning. So how a fish obtains oxygen is by water going in its mouth, out its gills. If the water goes in the gills, out the mouth, it can't obtain any oxygen. So they drown. So in a current situation, if you tail hook a bait and there's any tension on that line, let's say if you have a weight on there, within a matter of minutes, your bait fish will die. And not only does it look unnatural because it's spinning backwards, it's going to die very quickly. So I see a lot of people, a lot of other guides even, fishing with a live bait in current, and they're tail hooking it, and they're killing their bait, and they're not getting the strike. So, I mean, it's another video that you can see it firsthand. It's easy to explain it, but when you get to witness it, it's like, oh, wow, definitely.
Yeah, the one that really stuck out to me, it was a pinfish that was rigged the wrong way, and it was basically just sitting on the ground, the weight kind of holding it back, and it's just like flopping on the ground like a dead pancake. It looked so unnatural. I was like, man, nothing is going to touch this thing. You remember what I'm talking about?
No, but and when you're fishing the passes, I fish inlets and passes a lot, and under bridges there's a lot of current. And I mean, when you look around, half the people I see fishing are tail hooking their live bait. And I mean, that's eliminating their chances of catching fish. And it's all you need to do is just flip that bait around. But, without actually seeing it firsthand, you probably don't believe it. And, but being able to see it, you're like, it's an aha moment. It's like, yeah, we need to hook the bait forward, streamline, make them swim right, keeps them from drowning.
And that's why we called this course Bait Forensics, because it's based on real underwater evidence. I'm laughing a little bit here with Peter because we were going back and forth on the name of this, because this is such a unique course, and we wanted to have a unique name. And we kept going back to the forensics, and forensics, is kind of tied in with courtrooms and evidence and law. And I was like, well, man, like we have literally evidence here of exactly what's happening that anyone can learn from. And so I'm so pumped for you guys to see this. So going back to the tail hook, when would be a time that you would tail hook one of these baits? Let's just say like a mullet or pinfish.
So usually you tail hook a bait when there's little to no current. When you tail hook a bait, you can make that bait swim away from you if you keep your line semi-tight. So you're pulling the tail towards you, which makes its head go away from you, and that bait's going to swim away from you. And that allows you to cover a lot of ground. You can free line that bait out across a flat, out as far as 100 yards to find the fish. It's also effective if you're fishing down, like let's say the base of a bridge, or you're free lining a bait down around some dock pilings that keeps that bait swimming down. It also allows you to cast very far. If you tail hook a bait, you can whip it way out there. But based on this underwater evidence, you just don't want to tail hook it when there's any kind of current.
Love it. Yeah, and when you guys see the course, you'll know exactly what we're talking about. It's really really eye opening to see exactly what it looks like underwater, and we do have some other bonus videos that we've added in on what Peter's kind of mentioning, this free lining and active live bait management. I think above the water, that is one of the just cardinal sins, I'm going to call it, that most anglers, including full-time guides, are doing this, where they throw out their live bait, whether it's hooked correctly or not, let's just say, assume it is, and then they just sit there and put it in the rod holder. And you can see that. I mean, you can see exactly what that looks like underwater versus what Peter likes to call the active live bait management, where you do have your spool open, you're freelining it, and you're fishing it just like you would if you were fishing with artificial lure. Talk about that real quick. Your live bait management versus slapping it in the rod holder and hoping it works out for you.
Yeah, if you can, I mean, there's a time and a place that you can stick your rod in the rod holder. Let's say you're using a big weight and you got a big piece of cut bait waiting on a redfish.
And you're just you're dying to catch catfish.
You're loving the catfish, and you're having a great day throwing it out there. But if you're fishing live bait, truly fishing live bait, it's you want to fish almost more active than if you were fishing a lure. And, I'm a charter captain, and a lot of people call me up, and they love using lures because it's very active. So they request lures. And I love lures. I use them all the time as well. But if you want to catch more fish, or if you want to catch big fish, I always recommend live bait. But I try to explain to people over the phone, but they get to see firsthand on the boat. And it's active fishing. You're trying to get that bait to look as natural as possible in the water. And you want that bait to look like it doesn't have a hook or line in it. And oftentimes that requires keeping your bail open and constantly freelining your line out so there's no tension on that bait so that it just can swim on its own. Or if you're using a bobber and current, you're trying to feed that line out as quickly as possible so that it drifts naturally with the current. Like if you're fly fishing in a stream, a dry fly, you want that fly to look like an insect drifting down the stream to get that trout bite. If you put any tension on it or cross current, they won't eat it. So it's very active. You're kind of substituting a lure for a bait. And then there's many other applications too. You're actually fishing, like you put a shrimp on a jig head and you work it like a lure. Or if you're drifting like a live pinfish in an inlet to catch snook and redfish, and you're casting up current and you're drifting it down. So once you see what those baits look like in the water and what they're supposed to look like, and you come up with a good strategy in your mind, you can then actively fish that bait to make that bait look like you want it to look. I think a lot of people don't really know what the bait looks like in the water. So it's really easy to kind of mentally give up and just stick that rod in the rod holder and hope for the best. But, once you know what's beneath the water, which don't ever forget, this is something I've learned by diving all of my spots, snorkeling my spots, filming this course. There's a lot more game fish in the water than you realize. Even from the boat, you look down in clear water, a lot of game fish you don't see because they're just camouflaged. So you can get a lot more strikes and catch a lot more fish as long as you keep that bait looking that much more natural. And I think, line management, awareness, actively fishing that live bait is crucial to getting those bites. Don't be mistaken that live bait just catches fish on its own. Like, you want to fish that live bait.
Especially if you want to catch bigger fish.
Especially.
Once again, I think it is, I'm not going to ever say easy to catch fish because it's never easy, but it's much easier if you're just trying to go out there, throw some shrimp on a little hook, and catch a bunch of little snapper and stuff. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about going after those trophy redfish and speckled trout, snook, even flounder. I mean, tarpon. We're talking about going after the big fish, the ones that you're going to be crazy proud of. And like I said, I can't wait for you guys to see this. What's your opinion on like weight versus free line? When are we going to use some type of weight, and what's the rig that you're using? And when you go with just a straight up free line, does it depend on the current more, or does it depend on the type of bait you're using and depth, etc.?
Man, a combination of everything. It's
Peter,
hard to really
why can't
give,
it
like,
just be easy? Come on, man.
it can be easy, and that's another way that we kind of set this course up, and that it makes it really easy to kind of follow through. So let's say you're fishing from a dock and there's no current, and you're going to use mud minnows. Well, you can just go down the line and you can look at the course and you can see, like, right there, you can see the different ways to fish a mud minnow from a dock with no current, and when to use the weight, when not to use the weight. But overall, there's so many different ways to use weights. So if you're fishing from shore and you want to cast your bait, let's say in a no current situation, and the fish are farther from you, and you want to keep your bait in the strike zone. So like if you throw your bait out there without a weight, it might just drift back to you or swim back to you. But with a weight, you can launch it way out there and peg that bait on the bottom in the strike zone where the fish are swimming by. But if you don't have your bait hooked properly, or with the proper size hook and leader combination, then the bait will look unnatural out there. So, you can see both ways in these videos where, you can properly hook your bait to be fished with a weight, and you can also improperly. And, and weights are very effective in current. When you're fishing in a pass or an inlet, most big game fish want to stay down on the bottom where there's eddies behind rocks or breaks in the channel. They don't want to work that hard. So they're trying to stay out of the really heavy current, but they want to be on the edge of the current because current's what brings food by. So the current's going to be sweeping out mud minnows, crabs, all sorts of different types of food. And they want to be close to that to ambush, jump up on that bait, but they also don't want to fight the current. So you want to be able to present your bait down on the bottom where those fish are, but also looking natural. So, it's really hard to answer that question as to when and where to use weights. You use weights all the time, and they're effective pretty much every time, but you want to modify how you're hooking your bait when you use a weight.
And that's what we talk about in the course.
That's what we talk about in the course. And me and you can sit here and describe this and do 100 seminars, like this is how you fish a bait. But when you can see it under the water, and these are so simple. These videos are so simple. You're seeing that bait. I describe and explain what you're looking at, but and when to use that. But let's just say you're fishing in a pass for snook, and the snook are down on the bottom. You can see the different techniques of fishing the live baits that you have or want to use, and what they look like on the bottom. And let's say you're using a half-ounce split shot. I've got one in my hand right here. That behind a pigfish is going to be drug along the bottom because the pigfish is going to be strong enough to drag it. So you're going to modify your technique when fishing it like that. If you use a 3-ounce egg sinker with a mud minnow, that's going to peg that mud minnow to the bottom. So it's just, without being able to actually see that, I don't know how anyone could effectively fish those baits. And granted, there's places where the water's crystal clear and you grew up your whole life watching baits in the water and what they look like. But for the most part, how many people have seen what your bait looks like on the bottom in 25 feet of water in a pass? Like, not many people have ever swam down on the bottom and seen what that looks like. So this is your chance right here.
Or really in any depth. If you're standing on a boat or a pier or jetty, even in clear water and looking down, you can get an idea of the action of the bait. But what I love about this is, we've got I don't know how expensive that camera was, crazy expensive with all the underwater casings and all that, and you got a camera that's in crazy HD quality right down there with the bait, like right there next to it, so you can see everything. You can see when they're struggling. There's certain times, dude. There's that one video with that mullet in that structure, and I was swearing that it wasn't hooked. I was like, I can't see the line. I can't see the hook, and then I finally saw it after like a minute of really looking, and I was like, holy smokes. That was really, really cool. And so you can see the right way to do it like that. You're fooling the human eye, and you also see it the wrong way when you can just see some of these fish like we talked about drowning or suffocating and helicoptering all over the place. Like nothing's going to hit that sucker.
Right. Yeah, and you can see too. We use different leader sizes: too big of hooks, too small hooks, proper hooks, and you can see what that looks like in the water. And like you said, use a light enough fluorocarbon leader and a small enough hook. That bait looks really natural. I mean, you can't even see the leader. You up that to maybe 60-pound fluorocarbon, bam, it's very visible and it's weighing your bait down. So by seeing that, seeing is believing, Joe.
Well, let's talk about hook size real quick, because I feel like that's something that is one of the most common mistakes. Most anglers, especially a lot of the weekend warriors, they feel like, all right, I'm targeting this big bull red, and they start buying this crazy heavy equipment and terminal tackle, and not thinking about the live bait they're using, and many times that just destroys your chances of actually catching that big fish when you have this massive hook for a pretty small bait.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was that person, so I can speak firsthand, at least for myself. Maybe no one else has ever experienced this, but I know I have. And I would match my hook and tackle to the fish that I was targeting. And that is important to an extent, but the most important is getting that strike. I remind my customers all the time on the boat, it's like, let's focus on getting that strike first and then landing the fish. And if you use too heavy of a hook, it's going to make your bait sink. So a really popular bait is a white bait. And I use that term white bait to kind of encapsulate lots of different baits similar. So we're going to call like small pogies, pilchards, greenies, threadfins, all of those little white baits. They act the same. They catch the same thing. They live in big, thick schools. When you go around the world, anchovies, they're all kind of the same, just different species and subspecies. But anyway, if you use too heavy of a hook on those, it sinks them. They're not a strong bait. Now, a 2-inch greenie or pilchard will catch you a 40-inch snook, but not if you have a 4/0 hook hanging on it, because that bait just goes straight to the bottom, is pegged on the bottom, and looks very unnatural. But if you downsize to like a size 1 hook, that bait looks natural, and now you're going to catch that big fish. So, hook size is so important, and these videos emphasize that. We really we do a lot of videos, a lot of explaining, hook size, and you can see the proportionality. So, you want to match the size of the hook to the size of the bait to get that strike, because without that strike, you're not going to catch that fish.
And you said 1/0 hook, and I think a lot of people who maybe have have done what we just said, because we all have done it, where you get too big of a hook, you will be shocked at how big of a fish you can catch on an incredibly small hook, right? I mean, it's nuts.
Yeah, I'm not going to throw out, brands or anything like that. But, if you get a thin wire, old school hook, sure, it'll straighten out. And that's why I think a lot of people over the years started going to like the big, strong, sturdy Mustad J hook. But with the strength of the modern hooks, of all the major brands, like a little octopus hook or a little circle hook, let's say like a size 1 or a 1/0, that's a strong hook. Like, it's going to be hard to snap that. And they don't really straighten anymore. Like, a hook will more or less break before it straightens. But, you want to use your best judgment. If you're going to be flipping docks for 40-inch snook, you probably don't want to use a 1/0 hook. But at the same time, you're probably not going to be flipping tiny little greenies. So, you want to match it to the best technique that you're going to be fishing. But definitely try to use the smallest hook possible to keep that bait looking as natural as possible.
Yeah, I remember we were fishing with Captain Mike Goodwine one time, and he was using a little 1/0 hook, and we're going after big redfish. And I had that same thought. I was like, man, like, is that really a big enough hook? Because we were using real small little white bait. And he's like, listen. He's like, if I put this hook, it was small, but it was crazy sturdy and super sharp. He's like, if I put this in your lip right now, I guarantee you I can drag you around wherever I want to. I'd drag a 200-pound man anywhere I want with this hook. I promise you can catch a 40-inch redfish. And I was like, yep, you're probably right.
Captain Mike checks, yeah.
And let's talk to you about leader size, because I know that's a question that comes up a lot. And how important is that? Obviously, we know, especially here and anywhere in the South, for the most part, when you're using live bait, we're going to have some type of leader. We're never going to be going directly from braid to the hook. I know you personally like to do your little small, I don't know, 6 or so inch of a sometimes 60-pound, depending on what you're going after, and then 20-pound leader. How long, I think, is the question that comes up the most. Is that critical?
Yeah, so if you're using monofilament, you can go straight to a little, let's just say, let me back up a little bit.
Dude, who uses mono anymore? Come on now, Peter.
Yeah, well, I don't know. You tarpon maybe, or using a little fluorocarbon on there. But if I found that if you keep your, it's your bite leader. So if you're fishing for barracuda, you use steel, kingfish steel. If you're fishing for snook, you're going to use some hardened fluorocarbon leader. If you keep it less than about 12 inches long, fish are not afraid of it. Like today, I was actually tarpon fishing, and they were really spooky. They were small pods, 80 to 100-pound fish. And, we were getting away with using 80 pounds, and so we can really muscle those fish in so we don't hurt them in this warm water. And we were getting the bite. And as long as I could keep that leader shorter than about a foot long, then they're not afraid of it. So what Joe was saying earlier is, I really like to use a heavy piece of fluorocarbon if I'm targeting fish like tarpon or snook or fish that are going to bite through. And I go a little bit heavy. Like snook, I use 60 pounds because they're not afraid of it and it's short. But then up between my braid, I use braid pretty much exclusively, between my braid to that piece of leader, depending on the water clarity, I'll usually use about 4 to 5 feet of really light fluorocarbon, and I'll use a soft fluorocarbon. So I'll use something that's very inexpensive, like a Berkeley Vanish, which is made for line. It's a fishing line. It's not a leader material. So it's pure soft fluorocarbon. It's virtually invisible in the water. I'm a big advocate for fluorocarbon. A lot of other people aren't, and maybe it doesn't work that great, but I love it. And but yeah, and you can see in these videos, if you use really light fluorocarbon, let's say 15 to 20 pounds, it doesn't deter strikes. You can catch the wariest bonefish, and you can catch, big tarpon with that.
Yeah. Well, I won't remind you some of Luke's test on this whole fluoro versus mono, and we're having a lot of fun with that.
I can't argue with it. I don't know. Maybe I'm just stuck in my ways, but I know it works for me, and it does work well.
No, I'm giving you a hard time because it's tough for me to say that you're using the wrong thing when you catch more fish than anybody I know. So I was just trying to save you some money, but I know you probably get all your stuff anyways for free. Old Deeks. Talk too about these store-bought rigs. That I remember growing up, that was like kind of popular. It was just kind of easy. You still see them. I mean, they're still in every tackle store that I've ever been in. Talk about that and why you think that's not the best idea.
So this is a big one, I think, for a lot of people. And this is a mistake that I made for a long time fishing. And I was always a pretty good fisherman. I grew up in a fishing family. We fished all the time, caught lots of fish, traveled around kind of all over the world with different charter captains. And a mistake that I found myself doing a lot when I look back is using too heavy of rigs and using store-bought rigs. Using live bait as my crutch. So it's like, we can use this, just stick it in a live bait and let it do its thing. And, I would have caught so many more fish if I knew what I know now. But, when I'm out there fishing too, because I'm a, Salt Strong fishing coach, I'm always trying to come up with new things to teach or talk about. I try to pay attention to other anglers and mistakes they may be making. And this is the mistake I see everybody making. When I'm fishing Sebastian Inlet, Fort Pierce, even when I go to Tampa, and you watch a lot of other anglers fishing, or you're at the boat ramp and you see boats coming in, and I pay attention to everybody's rods. Like, what's tied on those rods? What is everybody using? And it is shocking to me at how many people use too heavy of rigs, and most of them are store-bought. And so a store-bought rig would be like a swivel and a 18-inch piece of either nylon-coated steel with another snap swivel and a hook, or it can have a couple weights and a big egg sinker, or even those surf rigs. I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with it. It's usually you put a big pyramid sinker at the bottom, and it'll have 2 dropper hooks, and there'll be some beads on it and a couple of floats. And that's made to pompano fish in dirty water in the surf. But people buy that and they use it to try to catch all sorts of different other fish. And it just deters so many strikes. And you can see in the video, it looks like a big piece of cable with a couple pieces of shrimp on it, or clam, or mud minnows, whatever you're going to use with that. And granted, fish are going to eat it, some fish, and you're always going to catch a lot of catfish. But I'm not going to say never, but you're probably never going to catch a big snook or a big trout or any of the smarter fish. And it's just, all you need is something very simple. You need a 20-pound piece of fluorocarbon leader, 3 feet long, a 1/0 hook, and a 1/4 ounce split shot. And you can effectively fish that rig to catch just about any fish anywhere if you fish it properly. And it's cheap and it's simple, and you don't have to overdo it. And you can modify it, heavier weight. You can maybe tie it into a dropper. But, yeah, do your best to tie your own rigs, keep them as light as possible, and you're going to catch so many more fish. And this is another thing, too, that I always remind myself. It's like, if you're fishing for the best and the most, a bad day is still better than if you were just out there hoping for a few. And so your best day doing that is going to be worse than your worst day if you put in that little bit of extra effort. So, always have a bait that most of the fish are going to eat because it looks really natural, and you don't have a big clunky store-bought leader on there. You've got something you tied yourself that looks very streamlined, and it's very light, and it's very unnoticeable. So I see a lot of people using those store-bought rigs, and I just know that they're not going to be very successful using those. But doing this underwater filming and personally seeing what that looks like on the bottom, it's bad.
It's real bad. It does. It looks like you said, just this massive, unnatural cable screaming, "Don't bite me unless you're a catfish." It looks very, very foreign to the water. It's bad. And it's probably a reason a lot of people that use it are, like, all I'm catching is a catfish, because it just sits there on the bottom and eventually probably kills the bait. And next thing you know, you're getting bit by a slimy sail cat or channel cat. Ugh.
And how many of those anglers were fishing there? They put the time in. They woke up early. They drove, and they put their boat in the water, or they drove out to a pier, and they're out there in the fish that would have made their day swam by and didn't eat that bait just because of that. It's like the weak link. Just change that, and, man, you're going to have so many more happy days. Yep.
Love it, man. Well, that's what this course is all about. Happier days, no more fishing blind. I love how you used that earlier about, most anglers are just kind of fishing off their imagination, or even worse, just kind of blindly fishing and hoping that their bait's doing the work they want it to do. And that's why we filmed this course. That's why it took almost a year to really get this right. We kept going down these different rabbit holes of, hey, if we're going to do this, we need to do this bait. And if we're going to do it, from a boat, we need to do it from shore and from a pier and jetty. We need to really cover everything that anyone could ever ask about fishing live bait. And this is for saltwater. If you're still wondering if this is for you, this is for inshore saltwater fishing. Yeah, you can apply some of these techniques to, some of the offshore stuff, but for the most part, this is going to be for targeting those big redfish and big snook, big speckled trout, tarpon, flounder, maybe some inshore mangrove snapper, but just making sure that bait looks so natural. and that you're just catching more fish and catching bigger fish is as well, and avoiding those catfish. We're very against catfish over here, Salt Strong. Even though I do a really good job of catching catfish, and every time I'm on your boat, which you told me is a good sign. This is a good tip for anyone still hanging around. Is when you start catching, the stingrays, right? I hook into it. I'm like, oh, it's a big red, and I was like, oh no, this is a stingray. I can tell. But you say that's a good sign, right?
Yeah, so stingrays, it's actually a great sign. They are feeding on what your game fish are feeding on. Catfish feed on scraps. They hang out at cleaning tables under restaurants. They're everywhere. Nasty. Stingrays, they move a lot, they travel a lot, and they want to stay in nice, healthy water. And they're gonna be looking for clams and shrimp and bait fish. So if you're seeing a lot of stingrays, that normally means there's a lot of redfish around, and also a lot of other game fish. So I'll pick up on that. If I'm fishing a new area or I'm looking around, if I see stingrays, I know there's going to be some game fish in the area. Or if I pull up to an area that I'm expecting to catch fish and I don't see any stingrays or I don't catch any stingrays, it's usually kind of a warning sign, like, let's not put a lot of time in here. So, yeah, it's kind of funny. It's an interesting observation, but stingrays are a really good sign.
Well, that's why Peter brings me along. He's like, I'll just put Joe up there and he'll catch a stingray, and that'll let us know that we're in a good spot.
And when we're waiting, I'm like, Joe, you just walk right in front of me. Take one for the team, not Joe.
That's right, not Joe. All right, friends, family, this has been fun. If you haven't picked up this course yet, I urge you to do it. We've put the biggest, baddest, boldest guarantee. It's for a whole year. So if you go through this, it won't take you a year to do it. To go through it, it's a probably few hours total. There's that much underwater stuff. It's probably right at 3 hours. You can do that in an afternoon, and you will be armed with so much intel. You will know more about live bait fishing than 99.9% of people out there, including full-time guides. There are many full-time guides that are great anglers, but they are kind of just using their imagination in a lot of cases, and this is a game changer. So I urge you to check it out, to pick up a copy while we still have it. Last time we had Deeks' course, it was only available for like a couple weeks, and then we shut it down, and it's still not available, that original live bait mastery, and we are going to throw in some really cool bonuses that you'll see in the course as well, and you can go get your copy at saltstrong.com/products. So that's on our products tab. If you're on our site, you can see products and or courses. It'll be right there, called Underwater Bait Forensics. Underwater Bait Forensics. Live bait secrets based on real underwater evidence. Awesome course. I'm so pumped to be a part of it. And I'm so glad that you took the time to do this. I really believe this is going to be one of those game changers, something that hopefully will inspire people. I know, like you said, for yourself, Peter, that there was a couple videos that happened to be underwater, and it was an underwater view that changed everything for you as an angler and kind of even help you, inspire you to be a full-time guide. So I really do believe this course is going to be one of those that is going to impact a lot of people for many, many years. Even 20 years from now, someone's going to be like, man, I'm good now because of what I learned in that course. It is that much of a game changer.
Yeah, I'm super excited about it too. And I can't recommend it enough. It's very simple. You get to see all the different baits under the water. And, 10 years down the road, you're going to go fish a different style in a different area, and you want to, refresh your memory of what a mud minnow looks like on the bottom and a heavy current. You just go back and you watch these videos. And, you don't want to listen to me talk, mute me, and watch that awesome underwater footage of that mud minnow in heavy current on a weight, how it slides around, what it looks like. So I can't recommend this enough. This is going to be such a useful tool for everybody. I'm telling all my friends and clients that they need to buy this so that they can see it. And I can't recommend it enough.
Oh, it's going to make your life easier as a charter captain. So even charter captains should be telling all their customers, check this thing out. It's going to make everyone's life easier. Everyone catches more fish. And I want to throw one more thing in there too. It is interactive, just like all of our mastery courses. So when you get in there, you're going to see below every video the opportunity to ask a question. Even though Captain Deeks is on the water pretty much every day, one of us will be in there from our team, and obviously Captain Deeks gets there when he has time as well to answer questions. And in the past, we've had a question that will come up that that is such a good question, like we're going to go film that and actually go film some new footage for you. And of course, once you have the course, there's no other charges. It's yours for life, and including any new videos and any new bonuses that we add down the road. So get yours today, Underwater Bait Forensics at saltstrong.com/products, and we will see you in the course. Captain Peter Deeks, I don't know how we're going to beat this one, but we have to come up with something crazy. I don't even know. I will, and if you guys have thoughts on that, let us know how we could possibly beat something that was filmed all underwater. And of course, you get the above water stuff, including how he rigs it, what the rig looks like, and even some of this active live bait fishing, this live bait management. So all kinds of really amazing videos and bonuses in this course.
Just don't forget. Pa-pow!
Pa-pow! All right, guys, thank you so much for all the support. We are out of here. We will talk to you on the next episode. Thank you, Captain Deeks.
Thank you guys so much.
Peace out, brother.
Peace.
'Cause fishing, it's in my soul. It was passed down to me from the days of old. Find us on the water if there was a way. It's been said my papa, he wrote the book on catching big reds and 20-pound snook. I wish I knew all the things he knew today. For he's the reason why we are this way. And he put fishing in our soul.